track I'm going to talk about is Anxiety, which I mentioned before. I'll just play you a snippet of that. So this is my Ableton session here. You see I've colour-coded everything. Synths, grouped them together, bass together, all the drums. All right, I'll give you a preview of that.
On edge, what can I do? Online, what can I say? Built up all this energy, you've passed on your anxiety. I go up and down those spirals in my mind. Whoa, the intricacies of a layered life. Push me out now, click on what you like. I know 10 years ago I never craved to socialize. Peace of mind. On air, how do I sound? On print, how do I look? Rolled out all my doubts. It's inside, I try to let it out. I question of the way we speak today. Is it real life or just some juvenile game? Push me out now, click on what you like. I know 10 years ago I never craved to socialize. Peace of mind. Is this what you want? Is it what you like? I can't believe it's come to this. I'm looking through square eyes. Peace of mind. It's not enough. It's not enough to have. I want it all. I want it all. I want it. It's not enough. It's not enough to have. We want it all. We want it all. We want it.
Yeah, so that's a little snippet of that. P.S. This is unmixed, so I can hear that that sounds really muddy and bad out there. I'm in the process of getting the album mixed at the moment. So yeah, that's a snippet of a track called Anxiety that's for the album that I produced. The way that I started this song was actually through playing a little riff, like a little chord progression, not a chord progression, a riff, on the Prophet 08 that I have at home. I'll just solo that. This is the first thing that came to me that I just kept looping over. So I just kept looping that, and I kind of felt straight away that that was suitable for a verse to be sung over. Yeah, after that, that's when I started to build the beat, the kicks and the snares, and then I moved on to writing the chorus synth section, which would, on the Prophet again, which would carry on from the verse. And the funny thing about this, actually the whole album, was that I had to play all of my hardware, like all the synth lines in live. I didn't have a MIDI cable set up. So there were limitations with that, but I didn't really mind. It was kind of fun. I got over it after a while. It was kind of fun to play it in live and, you know. So lyric-wise, again, what I was talking about before, just looking at the bigger picture of appreciating bigger artists, how they have to deal with pressures from being so exposed. And the plugins that I used on this track, I actually bought a lot of plugins before making the album just so I could have a few more toys to play with. Yeah, it's great. A lot of the effects that I used in the tracks was one called Echo Boy, basically just delays, just really crazy delays that you can use. I used Absynth as well, so that's another plugin. I used that for the actual chorus paddy sounds. So this sound here, this is Absynth. And I just sidechained that to a kick. For bass, I used a plugin called Trillion. Have you guys heard of that before? Yeah, a lot of cool sounds on that. I actually layered the bass, so I wanted to have a more punchy sound for the first layer. And then I layered like a subby underneath, so together it gives it a bit more fullness, a bit more depth. And the hardware that I used on this song was, like I said before, the Prophet 08. I also used a Yamaha DX21 synthesizer. That is this guy here. It's an old synth. I think it's like early 90s. Anyone know? I actually bought it off a friend off TAFE years ago, not knowing much about it. But that synth I actually used as the main chord progression in the Good Life track that I showed you before. So I used it again in this track, just as one of the layers. It has a nice tone to it. It's just this guy here. Yeah, it's great synth. I also used the Moog Voyager. So that was what I used when I went to Universal. I found a really cool sound to use in the second verse here that layers on top of that Prophet hook. So I basically just, once I found a preset, I just did a lot of tweaking for about half an hour to get to the sound that I liked. And last but not least, this guy here, the little pocket piano, I used this for a lot of the rises and kind of tension building sounds that kind of sound like space age stuff. I used that here and there. Where's that? The rise synth. So you will hear this. This is the pocket piano. Yeah, so it's a neat little instrument. On that, I actually used a tremolator to give it, a bit of movement. So some production-y little tricks and tips that I used in this that I'm going to talk about is the layering of snares. I laid a lot of snares in this song, mainly just because I liked the sound of them all together. That's really the only reason. So I'll break them up into what they were. So you've got this one here, this guy, then a white noise kind of snare, and then a click, a clap. Yeah, I just liked the sound of it. So it's always fun to have a go at layering snares when you're working on a track. Another sample that I used, I like to troll through lots of samples on freesound.org. It's a really great website. It's free sounds. I found a sample of a car door swish sound on there, and that is kind of like one of the main syncopated percussive elements on the track here. So you can kind of hear it. And I'll go through this part here. So that section there. Another thing that I did for the bridge section, I took this audio from here that was in the verse, put it in the bridge and reversed it to kind of give it a bit more of an eerie feel. Another thing that I did for the first time ever, because I only just updated to 9 at the end of last year, which I should have done earlier, was I used Granulator 2 from Max for Live. Basically, for those of you who don't know, you drag this in onto a MIDI track and then drag in a bit of audio, drag it into this here, which used to be blank. And what I did was I dragged in the kick drum of the track. So here's the kick on its own. Drag that in to Granulator. And what I did was I wanted to have like a weird feature in the bridge because the vocals kind of sit back in this section. I wanted to kind of have a bit of fun with the production. So what I did was I tuned this kick drum in Granulator. So I'll solo it, you'll hear it. And how I did that was just moving this grain knob here, just to get it to the right pitch. So I had to do it by ear, which took a while. So in the context of the track,
I want it all, I want it all, I want it. It's not enough to have. We want it all, we want it all, we want it.
yeah, so that's a cool little feature. If you guys haven't tried that before in Live 9, you should have a play around with it. It's really cool to use for vocals as well. If you want to cut up some audio from a vocal and drag that in, it's really cool to kind of break it up into little sections. That's what Granulator does. I guess like the kind of songs that I write, like they're poppy hooks, and the structure of the tracks are poppy. So in that sense, I mean you've got a verse, chorus, verse again, a chorus, and then a bridge, and then a final chorus. So that's like your typical pop structure, writing-wise. So I kept that throughout every track in the album, changing it on a few so they weren't all the same, obviously. But yeah, I've kind of always written in that structure because I grew up listening to a lot of late 90s, early 2000s R&B and pop. It definitely left a big stamp on me. Production-wise, like mood-wise, for this track I was listening to a lot of The Knife. They're probably one of my favourite acts. Unfortunately, they've split up recently, but I really love the production of all their stuff. So I wanted it to be quite dark sounding, so that was a reference. Yeah, that's pretty much on Anxiety.